So one minute you've got President Trump vowing to completely destroy Iran, and then, almost in the next breath, he's calling for a ceasefire. It's the kind of U-turn that gives you whiplash. So what is really going on here? In this explainer, we're going to dig into what's happening behind the scenes, some serious economic pressure, a whole web of conflicting demands, and a very surprising new player stepping onto the world stage.
All right, let's just start with the president's own words, because the contrast is, well, it's stark. On March 20th, he's crystal clear, no ceasefire. But then just 3 days later, a complete 180, an order to stop all attacks. You have to ask, what on earth could have happened in just 72 hours to force such a massive change of heart? Well, the first big clue isn't found on the battlefield. Nope, it's in the world's bank accounts. This whole situation almost immediately sent massive shockwaves right through the global energy market. Look at this. When Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which, is a choke point for something like 20% of the world's oil, the impact was immediate and pretty brutal. In less than a month, oil and gas prices shot up by 40%. That is the kind of economic pain that gets everyone's attention really, really fast. And we're not just talking about a minor price spike here. The head of the International Energy Agency put it in some seriously stark terms. He compared it to the huge oil shocks of the 1970s. We are talking about a potential economic catastrophe on a truly historic scale.
And this timeline, it shows you just how connected the military threats were to the pulse of the market. So on March 21st, Trump makes a big threat. What happens? The markets tank. Then, on March 23rd, and get this, just moments before the opening bell on Wall Street, he calls for a ceasefire. It's really hard to see that as anything but a direct move to stop the financial bleeding.
But while the U.S. was talking about a ceasefire, Iran was telling a completely different story. In fact, they claimed the whole thing was a lie, and that it was designed specifically to manipulate the very markets Trump was so desperate to calm down.
Yeah, Iran's response was blunt. The Speaker of their parliament, Mohammad Bakr Ghalibaf, just flat out denied any negotiations were happening at all. He went so far as to accuse Trump of spreading fake news just to try and lower oil prices and escape the economic mess he was in.
And this right here, this reveals the fundamental disconnect. The U.S. was looking for a quick fix, right? A temporary pause to get the oil flowing and ease the economic pain. But Iran, they saw an opening for a permanent victory, a binding peace agreement that was completely on their terms. A temporary truce just wasn't even on their radar.
And Iran's terms for this permanent peace were, well, they were steep. They wanted an ironclad guarantee against any future attacks, full financial reparations, all sanctions lifted, total control over the Strait of Hormuz, and every single U.S. military base in the region shut down. This wasn't a negotiation starter, it was a demand for total victory.
So with the usual diplomats kind of on the sidelines and direct talks being a total non-starter, a power vacuum opened up. And stepping into that void was a very, very surprising player, Pakistan. And Pakistan launched a total diplomatic blitz. You had the powerful army chief, Asif Munir, calling Trump directly. The very next day, the Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif, is on the phone with Iran's president. And now they've offered to host peace talks in their capital, Islamabad. So you might be asking, why Pakistan? Well, they're in a really unique spot. They're Iran's neighbor, but they also have a working relationship with the Trump administration. And here's a key detail a lot of people don't know. For decades, it's been Pakistan's embassy in D.C. that has served as the official channel for U.S.-Iran diplomatic contact. So you factor that in, plus the fact that Pakistan is getting hammered by this energy crisis and is eager to raise its own international profile. And suddenly, you've got a very motivated mediator.
Okay, but even as this new diplomatic path seems to be opening up, there is a huge potential roadblock. And that's America's closest ally in the region, Israel, who has made it crystal clear they have a completely different endgame in mind.
So while Trump was talking about a 5-day pause, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was sending a very different message. He basically declared that Israeli attacks would not stop and that their ultimate goal was to completely dismantle Iran's military capabilities, period.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. For Israel, this conflict isn't a crisis to be managed, it's an opportunity to be seized. The goal isn't peace. The goal is to weaken Iran so severely that it can never be a threat again. So from their point of view, any peace deal that leaves Iran strong is actually a failure. This makes them a huge potential spoiler in any negotiations.
So what we have here isn't a simple negotiation. It's a high-stakes, multiplayer chess match. You've got this fragile truce on the line, and every single player has a completely different idea of how they want the game to end.
Let's just break it down. You've got the United States, whose main goal is to calm the markets and buy some time. You have Iran, who's aiming for a permanent, knockout victory sealed in a treaty. You've got Pakistan trying to step up and be the peacemaker, and then you have Israel, who wants to continue the attacks and degrade Iran's military for good. These goals aren't just different, they're fundamentally at odds with each other.
So where does all this leave us? Is this 5-day truce, a truce born out of a panicked global economy, the first real step towards lasting peace? Or is it just a timeout in a much longer fight? Just a brief pause before the conflict explodes all over again, maybe even more dangerously. Right now, that is the big question.